Marcus stood in the doorway of our apartment, arms crossed, expression calm. Too calm. "You'll fail," he said, not angry, just certain. "You'll come crawling back within 3 months, I'm being realistic." I stared at him, suitcase half packed on the bed behind me. "Realistic?" I repeated. He nodded. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. When you return, we'll need ground rules." My hands went cold. "You've what?" He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "Drafted separation terms, for when this little tantrum ends." That word, tantrum, landed like a slap. I'd spent 6 years making myself smaller, quieter, more convenient, and he'd spent 6 years preparing for the moment I'd finally had enough. I zipped my suitcase without another word. He didn't move from the doorway. "Where will you go?" he asked. I lifted the bag. "I don't know yet." His eyebrow lifted, smug, victorious. "Exactly." I walked past him, shoulder brushing his arm. He didn't try to stop me. Why would he? He'd already decided I'd be back. The door clicked shut behind me. I stood in the hallway, heart pounding, hands shaking. I had $400, no plan, and absolutely no idea where I was going. But I knew one thing. I wasn't coming back. I opened my suitcase on my friend's couch that night and emptied everything onto the cushions. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, underwear, toothbrush, then something I didn't remember packing. My grandmother's spice notebook. Small, leather-bound, pages yellowed and soft from years of her touch. I almost left it behind. I'd grabbed it off the kitchen counter at the last second, thinking it might remind me of her. Now I held it carefully, flipping through recipes written in her neat handwriting. Cardamom chai, ginger honey blend, turmeric sunrise tea, each one labeled with little notes. Good for tired bones, calms the mind, warms the heart. My chest tightened. She used to say, "Spices tell stories. You just have to listen." I closed the book and sat there in the quiet. My friend was asleep in the next room. The city hummed outside the window, and somewhere in my mind a small, ridiculous idea started forming. What if I tried selling tea? The thought felt impossible and fragile, like something that would shatter if I said it out loud. But it was there. Quiet. Persistent. Refusing to leave. The next morning I walked through the market near my friend's apartment. Vendors shouted prices, fruit stalls overflowed, the smell of grilled meat mixed with fresh bread. I stopped at a small tea stall run by an older man with deep lines around his eyes. "Excuse me," I said. "Do you ever share stall space?" He looked me up and down. "Why?" I swallowed. "I want to sell tea blends. I don't have money for my own space yet." He wiped his hands on his apron. "You have product?" "I will," I said. He studied me for a long moment. Then he sighed. "I don't do rent. I do profit cuts. 30% of whatever you make." 30% felt steep, but I had no leverage, no options, no time to negotiate. "Deal," I said. He stuck out his hand. "You start tomorrow, 6 a.m. Don't be late." I shook his hand, pulse racing. "Thank you." He grunted and turned back to his kettle. I walked away, legs unsteady, brain spinning. I'd just committed to something I had no idea how to do. Tomorrow morning I'd have to show up with product, with confidence, with something to sell. I had none of those things, but I had one night to figure it out. The first day was brutal. I set up a small folding table next to the vendor's stall at 5:45 in the morning. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly knocked over my sample jars. I'd spent the previous night blending my grandmother's recipes using cheap spices from a bulk store. The cardamom chai smelled right, the ginger honey blend looked decent, but I had no customers. None. People walked past without even glancing. By noon I'd sold nothing. By 2 p.m., I wanted to cry. Then, at 3:30, a woman in scrubs stopped. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled into a messy bun. "What is this?" she asked, gesturing at my jars. "Tea blends," I said. "Homemade, based on my grandmother's recipes." She picked up the cardamom chai, sniffed it. "How much?" $3 for a small bag." She pulled out crumpled bills. "I'll take one." I packaged it carefully, hands still trembling. She left without another word. An hour later, she came back. This time she had 2 other nurses with her. "My friends want to try it," she said. They each bought a bag. By closing time, I'd made $21. The vendor took his cut. I had $14.70 left. It wasn't much, but it was proof. Proof that maybe, just maybe, this could work. By the end of the week, I'd stretched my spice supplies dangerously thin. I was rationing cardamom like it was gold, measuring ginger by the gram, using every last bit. I had just enough for one more day. Maybe. That morning, a young woman with a camera stopped at my table. She wore a vintage jacket and had a notebook tucked under her arm. "This smells amazing," she said, leaning over the jars. "What's in the ginger blend?" I explained the recipe. She smiled. "Can I buy some? And can I take a photo?" "Of course," I said. She bought 2 bags, then crouched down and snapped a picture of the jars with the morning light hitting them just right. "I run a food blog," she said. "Small, but people seem to like it. Mind if I post this?" My heart jumped. Not at all. She left. I didn't think much of it. Then, 2 hours later, my phone started buzzing. And buzzing and buzzing. Notifications flooded in, comments, messages, people asking where to find me, what my hours were, if I did mail orders. I stared at my phone, hands shaking. The blogger's post had gone up. She'd called my tea a hidden gem, and the best chai outside of my grandmother's kitchen. By noon, I had a line. By closing, I'd sold out completely. I had nothing left to sell. And more people kept asking. The demand was overwhelming. People wanted to buy in bulk. They wanted packaged blends they could take home, gift to friends, keep in their pantries. But I didn't have jars. I didn't have labels. I didn't even have a proper brand name. So I improvised. I bought brown paper bags from a craft store and started hand-wrapping each blend. I tied them with twine. I wrote the blend name and ingredients on small tags in my neatest handwriting. It took forever. My fingers cramped. My back ached from hunching over the table. But people loved it. "This feels personal," one customer said, holding up a packet. "Like it was made just for me." I smiled. It kind of was. Sales kept climbing. Then one afternoon, a man in a business suit approached. He looked out of place in the market, polished and precise. "Are you the one selling the tea blends?" he asked. "Yes," I said. He handed me a business card. "I own a cafe downtown. I'd like to place a bulk order, 200 packets. 1 week turnaround." I blinked. 200? "If you can't manage it, I understand," he said. "But I need to know now." I should have said no. I should have been realistic. Instead, I heard myself say, "I can do it." He nodded. "Good. I'll be in touch." He walked away. I stood there, staring at his card, wondering what I'd just agreed to. 200 packets in 1 week. I did the math that night and my stomach dropped. I'd need 10 times the spices I currently had. I'd need somewhere to work. I'd need help. I had none of those things. The next morning, I started calling suppliers. Big ones, small ones, anyone who might sell wholesale. Most hung up when they heard my order size. "Too small," one said. "We don't deal in quantities that low." I tried farmers markets next. I found a man selling fresh ginger and turmeric root at a stall near the edge of town. "I need bulk," I told him. "But I can't pay up front." He crossed his arms. "Then we don't have a deal." I swallowed hard. "What if I worked for it? I'll help with harvest, packing, whatever you need. You give me credit toward supplies." He stared at me like I was insane. Then he laughed. "You're serious?" "Completely." He shook his head, still smiling. "Harvest starts tomorrow, 4 a.m., don't be late." I nodded, relief flooding through me. "Thank you." That night, I set 3 alarms. I couldn't afford to mess this up. But when I checked the weather forecast, my stomach sank. Harvest season was running 2 weeks behind schedule because of rain. I had 7 days to deliver 200 packets. And the crops I needed weren't even ready yet. I showed up at the farm at 3:55 a.m. The air was cold and damp, the sky still dark. The farmer, whose name was Ron, handed me gloves and a basket. "You pick until I say stop." I nodded and got to work. My hands blistered within the first hour. My back screamed by hour 2. By noon, I could barely stand. But I kept going. Ron watched me from a distance, saying nothing. When the sun finally set, he handed me a small crate of ginger root and turmeric. "This covers today," he said. "You come back tomorrow, I'll give you more." I could barely lift the crate, but I smiled. "Thank you." Over the next 4 days, I worked sunrise to sunset. I picked, sorted, washed, packed. My hands bled, my shoulders ached. I fell asleep every night still smelling like dirt. But by day 5, I had everything I needed. Enough spices to fill 200 packets and then some. I thanked Ron, loaded the crates into a borrowed van, and drove straight to my friend's apartment. I had 2 days left. 2 days to blend, package, and deliver. I worked through the first night without sleeping. My hands moved automatically, measuring, mixing, folding paper, tying twine. By the second night, I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. But I kept going. At 4 a.m. on delivery day, I tied the last packet, 200 exactly. I sat back, hands trembling, and let myself cry. Not from sadness, from exhaustion, from relief, from the terrifying realization that I'd actually done it. I delivered the order at 8 a.m. The cafe owner met me at the back entrance. He opened one of the packets, smelled it, then brewed a cup right there in front of me. I stood silently, heart pounding, watching him take the first sip. He paused, took another sip. Then he smiled. "This is excellent," he said. My knees nearly buckled. "Thank you." He set the cup down. "I'll take double next month." I blinked. "Double?" 400 packets, same turnaround. Can you handle it? I should have hesitated, should have been cautious, but instead I nodded. "Yes." He shook my hand. "Good, I'll send the details." I walked out of that cafe, made it halfway down the alley, and broke down. I leaned against the brick wall and sobbed. Not because I was sad, because for the first time in months, I felt like I'd done something right, something real, something mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Still surviving out there?" I stared at it for a long moment. Then I deleted it without responding. I didn't owe him an update. I didn't owe him anything. I wiped my face, straightened my shoulders, and kept walking. I had work to do. The cafe order changed everything. Suddenly, I had consistent income. Suddenly, I had proof that people wanted what I was making. But I also had a new problem. I needed real equipment. Mixing spices by hand in my friend's kitchen wasn't sustainable anymore. I needed scales, containers, a workspace that didn't double as someone's living room. I started researching small business loans. Bank after bank rejected me. No credit history, no collateral. Insufficient business track record. I was ready to give up when someone at the market mentioned a community microlender. "They work with people like you," the vendor said. "People just starting out." I met with them the next day. The loan officer was kind but firm. "We can lend you $2,000, she said. "But the interest rate is high, 23%. I swallowed. "And if I miss a payment? Then we reclaim any assets tied to the loan." Equipment, inventory, everything. It was brutal. But I needed it. "I'll take it," I said. She slid the paperwork across the table. I signed. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the weight of the loan pressing down on my chest. If I failed, I'd lose everything. But if I didn't try, I'd lose anyway. The next morning, I bought a commercial-grade scale, airtight containers, and a small label printer. It felt like stepping off a cliff. But it also felt like flying. With the loan money, I rented a tiny storefront. And I mean tiny. It was barely bigger than a closet, wedged between a barber shop and a discount shoe store. The walls were stained, the floor creaked, the single window faced a brick wall. But it was mine. I scrubbed it top to bottom, painted the walls myself, and set up a small workstation in the back. For the first time, I had a real space to work. Sales kept climbing. The cafe owner recommended me to 2 other locations. I started getting online orders from the blog posts that wouldn't stop circulating. I hired a part-time helper, a college student named Tara, who needed flexible hours. Everything felt like it was finally coming together. Then the landlord called. "Rent's going up," he said, "starting next month." "What? You didn't mention that in the lease." "Check the fine print. Rent triples after the first 3 months." I checked. He was right. My stomach dropped. The new rate would eat most of my profit. But I couldn't afford to move. Not yet. I gritted my teeth and kept working. Then, 2 weeks later, a new tea shop opened 3 doors down. Bigger, brighter, better location. I watched customers walk past my shop to get to theirs. Sales dipped, panic crept in. But I refused to give up. Not now. Not after everything. The competitor's shop was slick. They had branded cups, a loyalty program, and a social media presence that made mine look like a joke. Worse, their blends tasted suspiciously similar to mine. Too similar. One afternoon, a customer casually mentioned, "Oh, they have the same ginger honey blend you do. Weird, right?" My blood went cold. I started paying closer attention. Within a week, I noticed Tara, my helper, spending a lot of time on her phone, texting, glancing over her shoulder. One day I saw her taking a photo of my workspace. "What are you doing?" I asked. She jumped. "Nothing. Just, show me your phone." Her face went red. "I don't have to." "Show me." Reluctantly, she handed it over. The messages were all there. Photos of my recipes, lists of suppliers, details about pricing, all sent to someone at the competitor's shop. I felt sick. You're done, I said quietly. What? You're fired. Leave. She tried to argue, but I didn't listen. I watched her pack her things and leave. That night sales dipped even further. Losing her meant I was back to working alone. But I couldn't trust someone who'd sell me out for a few extra bucks. I sat in my empty shop, head in my hands, wondering how much more I could take. I knew I needed to differentiate myself. Being cheaper wasn't enough. Being local wasn't enough. I needed something that made people choose me over the competition. That night, I redesigned my packaging. I kept the brown paper and twine, but I added something new, my grandmother's name, Nana Rose's Blends. I printed it on small labels and attached them to every packet. I added a tiny note on the back. Recipes passed down with love. It felt vulnerable, personal, like I was sharing something sacred. But it worked. Customers started commenting, I love that this has a story. It feels like I'm buying from family. This is so much more meaningful than the place down the street. Orders started climbing again, slowly at first, then faster. The competitor had the flashy branding, but I had something they couldn't fake, heart. People could feel it. Then one morning, I woke up to 73 online orders. 73. I stared at my phone, unable to process it. I couldn't fill that many orders alone. Not in time, not without help. I spent the entire day blending, packing, labeling. My hands cramped, my eyes blurred. By midnight, I'd only finished half. I worked until 4 a.m., then collapsed on the floor of my shop. When I woke up 2 hours later, I knew I couldn't keep doing this alone. I needed to scale. Fast. I launched a basic website. Nothing fancy, just a simple order page with photos and descriptions. I didn't expect much. Then the first international order came in. Someone in Canada wanted 3 bags of cardamom chai. I stared at the screen, stunned. International shipping costs were insane. It would eat into my profit completely. But it also meant people outside my city wanted what I was making. I packed the order carefully and sent it off. 2 weeks later, another international order. Then another. I realized this could be bigger than I'd ever imagined. But shipping costs were killing me. I spent hours researching cheaper options, negotiating with carriers, trying to find a balance between cost and quality. Eventually, I found a solution. Flat-rate international shipping, bundled orders, streamlined packaging. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Orders kept coming. My tiny shop felt too small. I started looking at warehouse spaces. Most were way out of my budget. Then I found one. Small, affordable, and available immediately. I scheduled a viewing. The space was bigger than I needed, but the price was right. I signed the lease that same day. When I walked in the next morning to start moving equipment, I nearly cried. The entire place smelled like mold. The walls were damp. The floor was stained. I'd been scammed. Or maybe just desperate enough not to notice. Either way, I was stuck. I couldn't afford to break the lease, so I cleaned. I scrubbed walls for 3 days straight. I bought industrial fans and ran them non-stop. I bleached the floors until my hands burned. Slowly the smell faded, the dampness dried. It started to look like a real workspace. Then I got the notice. Health inspection scheduled in 2 days. My stomach dropped. If I failed, I'd lose everything. The business license, the warehouse, all of it. I worked around the clock. I organized supplies, labeled everything, scrubbed every surface until it gleamed. On inspection day, I stood in the center of the warehouse, hands clasped, barely breathing. The inspector walked through slowly, checking corners, testing surfaces, taking notes. Finally, he turned to me. "1 violation," he said. My heart sank. "What is it?" "Your ventilation system needs an upgrade. You have 24 hours to fix it." 24 hours. I nodded. "I'll handle it." He left. I immediately called every contractor I could find. Most couldn't come for a week. One said he could do it that night if I paid double. I didn't have double. But I didn't have a choice. "Do it," I said. He came at 8 p.m. and worked until 2 a.m. By morning, the ventilation system was installed. The inspector returned at 9. He tested it, nodded, and signed off. "You're good to go," he said. I almost collapsed from relief. The inspector paused on his way out. "You know," he said, "I own shares in a cafe chain, small but growing. They're looking for suppliers." I blinked. "Seriously?" He handed me a card. "Call this number. Tell them I sent you." I stared at the card like it might disappear. "Thank you," he shrugged. "You've got a good product. Don't waste it." 2 days later, I met with the cafe chain's purchasing manager. She was sharp, professional, and intimidating. She tasted every blend I'd brought, asked detailed questions about sourcing, pricing, and production capacity. Then she leaned back. "We're interested," she said, "but we'd need exclusivity." "Exclusivity? You supply us and only us for the first year. In exchange, we'll place standing monthly orders and promote your brand in all our locations." It was a huge risk. If they dropped me, I'd have no backup. But it was also a huge opportunity. "What happens if I can't meet supply?" I asked. She didn't sugarcoat it. "Penalties, breach of contract, possibly legal action." I swallowed hard. "I'll do it." We signed the agreement that afternoon. I walked out of her office feeling like I'd just bet everything on a single hand, because I had. The cafe chain orders were massive. 3,000 packets a month. I hired 2 part-time workers and bought more equipment. Production ramped up fast. For the first time, I felt like a real business owner. Then, 3 weeks in, my primary blending machine broke. It just stopped. Mid-batch. I tried everything. Nothing worked. I called a repair technician. He came the next day, looked at it for 10 minutes and shook his head. "It's done. You'll need a new one." "How much?" $3,000, minimum. I didn't have $3,000. Not after paying workers, rent, and loan payments. I sat in the warehouse, staring at the broken machine, and felt everything start to crumble. Orders were backing up. The cafe chain was expecting delivery in 5 days, and I had no way to fulfill it. I called Ron, the farmer. "I need a favor," I said. "I'm in trouble." He listened. Then he sighed. "I'll lend you my equipment, but you owe me." "I know, and you'll owe me more than money." I didn't ask what he meant. I just said, "Thank you." I picked up his equipment that night and worked non-stop for 4 days. My workers helped. We barely slept. But we met the deadline. Barely. The cafe chain's CEO scheduled a visit the following week. I had no idea if I'd survive it. The CEO arrived unannounced. I was in the middle of blending a batch when he walked in, flanked by 2 assistants. I froze. "Don't stop," he said. "I want to see how you work." I kept blending, hands shaking slightly. He walked around the warehouse, tasting samples, asking questions. Then he asked the one question I wasn't ready for. "Why do you do this?" I looked up. "What do you mean?" "Why tea? Why this business?" I thought about Marcus, about my grandmother's notebook, about every moment I'd been told I'd fail. "Because I needed to prove I could," I said. He nodded slowly. "Good answer." Then he smiled. "We're rolling you out nationally, 50 locations, starting next quarter." I couldn't breathe. "Nationally? You'll need to restructure, incorporate officially, hire a team. Can you handle it?" I thought about everything I'd survived so far. "Yes," I said. He shook my hand. "Good, we'll be in touch." After he left, I sat down on the warehouse floor and cried. Not from fear, from disbelief, from the overwhelming realization that I'd actually made it. I incorporated the business officially. Nana Rose's Blends became a legal entity. I was the owner, the founder, the CEO of something real. My lawyer handed me the documents. "Congratulations," she said, "you're official." I stared at my name on the paperwork. Founder and owner. It felt surreal. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" "It's me. Marcus." I hadn't heard his voice in over a year. "Why are you calling?" I asked. He hesitated. "I heard about your business. I wanted to talk." "About what?" "I think we should discuss options." "What options?" "Well, you've done well. Better than I expected. But you used my apartment as your mailing address initially. Legally, I might have a claim." I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. He wanted a piece of what I'd built. After everything. I blocked his number. Then I called my lawyer. "Can you make a claim?" I asked. She reviewed everything. "No," she said. "He has no legal standing. Don't engage." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat there staring at my phone, feeling something shift inside me. Marcus thought I'd fail. He'd prepared for it, he'd weaponized it, and now that I'd succeeded, he wanted in. But he didn't get to have this. Not a single piece. 2 days later, I got another call, this one from a private collector. "I'm calling about a notebook," he said. A spice recipe notebook, leather-bound, belonged to a Rose Mitchell. My heart stopped. My grandmother. Yes, it was sold to me 3 years ago. I'm an avid collector of culinary history. But I recently discovered it was sold without the family's knowledge. I gripped the phone. "Who sold it?" He paused. "A Marcus Brennan. He claimed it was his to sell." My vision blurred. Marcus had stolen my grandmother's notebook, the one I'd been using to build my entire business. The original. Where is it now? I asked. It's going to auction, he said. In 48 hours. I thought you should know. I thanked him and hung up. Then I checked my bank account. I had just enough. Barely. I booked a flight that night. The auction house was in another state. I arrived 12 hours before the bidding started. I didn't sleep. I sat in a hotel room, staring at the auction catalog, preparing myself. When the bidding started, I sat in the back row. The notebook came up third. Starting bid, $500. I raised my hand, someone else bid. I countered, back and forth. The price climbed, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. Then I saw him, Marcus, sitting near the front, bidding against me. Our eyes met across the auction room. His face went pale. He didn't expect me to be here. I raised my hand again, $2,500. He hesitated, then bid again, $3,000. I didn't flinch. $3,500. The auctioneer's voice echoed, going once. Marcus looked at me, jaw tight. Going twice. He didn't bid. Sold. I walked to the front, paid, and took the notebook. My hands shook as I held it. Marcus stood nearby, watching. You didn't have to do this, he said quietly. I looked at him. Really looked. He was thinner, tired. His suit didn't fit right. You stole from me, I said. I was going to give it back. No, you weren't. You sold it, for cash, because you were broke. His face flushed. I made a mistake. You made a choice, I said, and now you're living with it. I walked past him without another word. Outside, I sat on a bench and opened the notebook. My grandmother's handwriting, her recipes, her love. All of it, finally back where it belonged. I cried, not from sadness, from relief, from closure. That night, I flew home. I placed the notebook in a glass case in my office, a reminder, not of pain, but of everything I'd survived. 6 months later, I walked into a cafe I'd never been to before. It was mid-morning, quiet, just a few people scattered at tables. I ordered a tea. The barista smiled. We actually carry a local brand now, Nana Rose's Blends. Want to try it? Sure. She made the tea and handed it to me. I sat by the window and took a sip. It tasted exactly right. Warm, familiar, mine. A man walked in. I glanced up. It was Marcus. He didn't see me at first. He ordered coffee, scrolled on his phone, waited. Then the barista asked, Want to add a tea? We have this great new brand. No thanks, he said. She held up a packet anyway. Nana Rose's Blends, it's really popular. He glanced at it, paused, stared at the label. My grandmother's name, my logo. He didn't recognize me sitting 10 feet away. But he recognized the brand. I watched his face change, confusion, then something like regret. He paid and left without looking back. I stayed. I finished my tea slowly, savoring every sip. When I finally stood to leave, I paid with my company card. The barista's eyes widened. Wait, are you? I smiled. Just a fan of good tea. I walked out into the sunlight, shoulders back, head high. The life Marcus said would break me had built me instead, and I'd never felt stronger. Running a business wasn't easy. There were still hard days. Days when shipments were late, when customers complained, when equipment broke and money got tight. But those days didn't break me anymore. They just reminded me how far I'd come. I hired a full team, 5 employees who believed in what we were building. I moved into a bigger warehouse. I expanded the product line. We added new blends, seasonal specials, gift sets. Revenue doubled, then tripled. I got interviewed by a local magazine. They asked about my story. I told them the truth, about Marcus, about starting with nothing, about my grandmother's notebook. The article went viral. Orders flooded in. We couldn't keep up. I hired more staff, bought more equipment, and kept pushing forward. One afternoon, I received a letter from Marcus. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single page, handwritten. I was wrong about everything. I'm sorry. No excuses, no justification, just an apology. I folded it and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. His apology didn't change anything. It didn't erase the past. And it didn't define my future. I'd moved on, completely. A year later, I stood in front of my warehouse, watching a delivery truck unload supplies. The logo on the side of the building, Nana Rose's Blends, was freshly painted and gleaming in the afternoon sun. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Hello? Hi, I'm calling from a national grocery chain. We'd like to discuss stocking your products in our stores. I blinked. Nationwide? Yes, we think your brand aligns with our values. authenticity, quality, story. I scheduled a meeting for the following week. When I hung up, I just stood there, letting it sink in. A national grocery chain, my products in stores across the country. That night, I opened my grandmother's notebook and reread her notes. Spices tell stories. You just have to listen. She was right, and my story was just beginning. 2 years after leaving Marcus, I stood in a grocery store I'd never been to before. I was traveling for a trade show and stopped in to grab a snack. As I walked down the tea aisle, I saw it. My product, Nana Rose's blends, sitting on the shelf next to national brands I'd grown up seeing. I picked up a box and just held it. A woman reached past me and grabbed one. "This stuff is amazing," she said. "My sister got me hooked." I smiled. "I'm glad you like it." She walked away, and I put the box back on the shelf. I didn't need to buy it. I just needed to see it, to know it was real. I paid for my snacks and walked out. My phone buzzed, a text from my team. "New order just came in, 15,000 units, biggest yet." I smiled and texted back, "Let's do it." As I drove away, I thought about Marcus's words from 2 years ago. "You'll fail, you'll come crawling back." I never did. Not once. The life he said I couldn't build became the life I couldn't imagine losing. And every single day, I'm grateful I walked out that door, because the person I am now, she was worth fighting for.